It is Sunday, October 12th, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. Folks, we're all very excited in Toronto right now, and even in the rest of Canada, because the only Major League Baseball team in Canada, the Toronto Blue Jays, are going into the first game of the American League Championship Series tonight. And I don't know about you folks, but I am a super duper big baseball fan, having thrown first pitch at a Blue Jays game as a teenager. So I don't know what the results of that will be, but I imagine most of you will be listening tomorrow morning instead of this evening, because we're all going to be watching this game, let's be honest. But when you do listen, you'll be excited to hear today's episode with a very special guest. She was on our special episode at the New Leaf Liberal Pub Night live coverage, but now she's in for a full studio episode. Her name is Jennifer Alexander. She writes for the Etobicoke Voice in Etobicoke and Western Toronto, and she's currently the new regional vice president for the Ontario Women's Liberal Commission for the region of Etobicoke, downtown, and East York in Toronto. Please welcome Jennifer Alexander. Jen, how you doing?
Good. Thanks, Jake, for having me. This is exciting.
Thank you for coming on the show. I mean, we've talked before. We had you on that special episode at the pub night, so thank you for talking in a loud, busy room with me. But it's great to actually have you on for a full, proper episode.
See, now the stress is on because I'm not at a party, so
yeah. Well,
we're
not too tough. Well, we ask fun questions, but they're not too tough. But no, I guess the first question is, the New Leaf Liberals succeeded. There's going to be a new leader for the Ontario Liberal Party soon, at some point in the not too distant future, as they'd say on Mystery Science Theater. But I guess the question is also, you've successfully during that AGM were also elected by the women in the Ontario women in the Liberal Party to the Ontario Women's Liberal Commission as regional vice president, again for the region of Etobicoke, downtown, East York. So I know people may be familiar with the Young Liberals as a group within the Liberals, but for those who aren't aware, could you explain a bit more about groups like the Women's Commission and other commissions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very honored to have been chosen to represent the southern part of the city this year. The Ontario Women's Liberal Commission is an arm where we are looking to mentor and bring more female voices into the party, into not just candidates and volunteers, but also into policy. We have a seat at the table with the executive council, and really, it's making sure that 50% of the population doesn't get left behind.
Right, and that seems pretty fundamental. It shouldn't need to be defended. There's a significantly underrepresented group who make up actually, I think, slightly over 50% of the population in Canada. I don't know exactly. Feel free to fact check me on that at home, folks. But women are such a basic and fundamental aspect of society and civilization that it is a bit weird how and I mean, I'm not new to misogyny, but I would have hoped we were a bit better on that by now.
You would, exactly, and there's just so many things too that kind of get in the way of the women's role sometimes. I mean, we're the ones who are having children. We're the ones who are a lot of the time the caregivers, whether it's for young family members, older family members. Fundraising is not easy for women, unfortunately, and and the big thing is that I'm working on now actually is a virtual conversation about Persons Day. We're 96 years since, a woman was considered a person.
Right, the famous five.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're still, trying to bring these conversations, 96 years later.
Yeah, and that's an important case for those at home who aren't aware. 96 years ago was when 5 women sued the Canadian government because legally a woman couldn't become a senator in the Senate of Canada because women weren't legally considered people, which, seems like an egregious bigotry. But And it was absurd because the Supreme Court of Canada actually ruled that women were not people legally, but at the time you could still appeal above the Supreme Court of Canada to the judicial clerk of the Privy Council, or it was a higher court in Britain that could override dominions at the time. I think this was before the 1930s when there was a change in the status of dominions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it took so much time, and we really would like to think that our legislatures, our provincial seats of government, our cities could be 50-50. But in a lot of places, we're lucky to have 25% of the seats filled by women. So really, with the Women's Commission, I'm excited because I am now, the representative of 11 ridings in Toronto, all of Etobicoke, and in Beaches East York and Toronto Danforth, which is kind of more into the east end of the city for those of you who are outside of the city. But we don't have any women's clubs in that area,
I was
and
going to ask about that, like how, because I know there are there, if for commissions they can also form riding clubs in addition to the main liberal riding organization. So like I know Young Liberals do, and I know some women's clubs do exist in some ridings, but in those 11 ridings you cover, there aren't any.
there are none. There are
Hmm.
none right now. I don't know if
I
there
can't
ever
blame you
was.
for that because you just got on the job.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's the thing, and that was one of the things I ran on. And I'm not looking to necessarily, um, get a club in every riding, but we are aiming to at least start one or two per region. And I'm kind of looking at this as I'm going to push it up to three. Toronto is a huge city. It's hard to get across. I live in Etobicoke, and I made a big trek out to the Danforth last week, and people don't want to do that too
Yeah,
regularly.
even
So,
if you live close to line 2 and you can ride it, it can still be a long ride going from one end to the other.
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It's
And,
like for
you know,
go actually folks go actually ride from Kipling to like Coxwell Station and then like tell me like I mean it works, but it's a bit slower than you'd like.
yeah, yeah, have some like good things, download it to your phone or have a good book or something.
It's
Um,
when I fit
but
podcasts like this in.
exactly, exactly. It's the best time to do it. Have your coffee and a podcast. But I mean, but seriously, when it comes down to it, you know, women again are the ones looking for the babysitters. We're the ones who have older parents to take care of. It's not easy to get out, and I want to make it so that women who want to get involved can have somewhere. Don't have to do the Zoom option, right? Because a lot of the time we do the Zoom option. It's easier, but it's really nice, especially when you're talking about politics. When you're,
You want to
you
meet
know,
people in person.
exactly, exactly. So in an ideal world, and we'll see. You can talk to me in about a year's time, and we can see if this has happened. But I would like to see an Etobicoke-wide club or association, a downtown west, so basically from the Humber River to Yonge Street, and then an east end of Yonge Street to where we cut off, which is basically, I guess, the Scarborough border. So
So
using,
you're feeling like
representation.
instead of just a club for a riding, you think it's more manageable to on the 3 different parts of Toronto that your region covers, trying to put a club for each of those.
I think so. I think it's because you also have to think about how many women are involved, how many want to get involved, and you want to have a substantial club. You don't want just, two or three women who go to the
Right.
PLA and this and that. Yeah. So, and it's a good way to connect our PLAs too, which is super important. We don't need to, reinvent the wheel, every riding.
My question is, what would you say? And there are some women who have told me they don't participate in things like the women's club just because they worry about being pigeonholed. like that it would limit their participation in the main political party, and that it's do you feel there's any truth to that there's a segmenting off that happens, or do you think that the Women's Commission has substantial influence, or that it could, over the core party itself?
Oh, I absolutely believe it has and could have a greater substance there. I'm a PLA director in Etobicoke Center. I attend our meetings. I'm technically, I guess, the lead of community engagement. But you're talking about your PLA. You're talking about what's happening in your area, and you don't always get to have that fuller voice, right? You're in there sometimes with people who have been doing this for many years, and you're learning from them, but it's hard to sometimes bring new ideas. So I think by having the women's clubs and the women's associations, you get to have a bigger conversation. You get to have the conversations about policy. You're not just, focused on getting your PLA ready for an election, which all PLAs really, really need to be doing and building up. You get to look at policy. And we do have a vice president of policy in the women's commission. The president of our commission does sit and have a seat at the table at executive council. So there are ways that you're not pigeonholed. You actually almost have a greater voice,
You get
and
to
you
do
can do both.
more, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like with the young libs. There's young libs who are in our PLA, and they have their writing young libs club, and I'm actually going to go to a young libs kickoff pub night next week.
Oh, fun.
I'm very, very far from being a young lib. I'm the mother of a young lib, so that tells you something.
A
But
young at
it's
heart lib.
again very, very young at heart. um, Sometimes probably my 18-year-old thinks she's more mature than I am, and she probably is sometimes. But I'm going to be there to. It's in my region, and I want to talk to the young women, and I want to be there to answer questions. Because you can be a young lib, but you can also be part of the women's commission.
Right.
So it's getting your foot wet in all these different areas.
And that actually leads to another question. So, like, and I agree with you. I think that participating in these commissions can be beneficial as long as it's in addition to and not instead of. But something that bothered me at at the AGM the other month, where there was the executive elections and the commission AGMs as well, and the vote on Bonnie Crombie. There was a bit of an overlap on the four commission. Like, there's the Young Liberal Commission, there's the Seniors Commission, there's the Women's Commission, and then there's the Northern and Rural thing. Side note, I think that they should copy the federal party and have an Indigenous Commission for pretty obvious reasons if we're talking about underrepresented groups.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I agree.
but back to the main thing. There was some schedule overlap between those four commissions. And listen, young liberals and seniors are mutually exclusive, so that's fine. Like, you can't be both under 26 and above 65 at the same time. But you can absolutely be a young liberal or a senior liberal and live in a rural area or be a woman. And I don't think that women should have to be put in a position of choosing between the Women's Commission or the rural thing or the Women's Commission and
Yeah.
the senior. Like, especially because, as you've said, I think on the executive there are crossover roles. Like, there's a young liberals representative to the Women's Commission, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And I mean, and purely with my mom hat on, I can tell you, I got super upset with that scheduling because my AGM, when I was running, and my daughter has been fully behind me all summer, and she's been watching me, writing speeches, and I set up a Substack specifically for running, and she was watching all this, and she was seeing what I was doing. She was excited for me, and she's very much a little politician in the making. And she had to make that decision. She had to decide, I'm at the AGM. Do I go and support my mom, or do I go to the Young Libs? And she is a she's on the executive of her Young Libs Club, and I
Mm,
said to her, I'm like, "Don't feel guilty. That's your thing." And she's like, "Yeah, because I want to go to that. I want to vote. I want to hear the speeches." And I'm like, "Absolutely." But should she have to make that decision?
no.
No. The scheduling could have been done much, much better. And I'm not gonna lie, they should have been announcing it as well because
Yeah.
I was almost late for the Women's Commission AGM because I was in the ballroom. I was listening to speeches and went, "Oh, oh, they're okay. I better get going."
What was really
So I'm
frustrating with the Young Liberal one is they put it very far from every other thing. They actually put it in a section of the hotel convention center right beside where a couple lobbying groups had reserved space, and I very much didn't like that, just because, like, it's fine if the lobbying groups are on a separate floor of the hotel with a clear separation. That's my bar. But by
yeah.
putting one liberal event and then making everyone walk through there to get to it, I think that it defeated the purpose of that separation. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
It was so funny because I was texting my daughter. I'm like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "Well, I'm up here and around this corner." And so I was just like, "Hmm."
yeah.
But
skip
yeah,
hopping
I was just
a
like,
skip hopping a leap away.
exactly. I was just glad she was with people she knew. But yeah, and you put all these young people, you put all these, there's a young lib can actually be, as young as 14. And I know that in our area, some of them are quite young, and we're at the AGM. So you're sending 16, 17, 18-year olds with these university students, and it's like, see you later. But
Yeah.
again, that's probably me being,
Nah,
a parent.
no, you're not entirely. I was I started in the Young Liberals when I was 16. In a month, I age out provincially, but I'm not a liberal federally anymore. We'll get into that with the back half of topics with some federal politics. But provincially, I age out in a month. But yeah, I get why some people may feel weird about 14-year-olds being in the same room as 25-year-olds. I don't entirely disagree, but I think like it mainly depends on like the event being held. When everyone's together, it's mostly for like voting on something, like party business. And the truth is, people may not get this at home. There's no such thing as young members of a political party being like split off from the party, whether it's the Conservatives, the Greens, the NDP, the Liberals, the federal or provincial levels, at least here in Ontario. When you're old enough to join the party, you're a full member of the party. 14-year-olds in the Liberal Party have the right to vote in nominations for who will be the party's candidate. They have the right to vote in leadership contests. They have the right to vote on AGMs and to be members of executive positions. And I fully support that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. And some of the volunteers we have, who I guess we're more federal volunteers, but have kind of come over to the provincial side, and we we've got such a small bunch of kids who are involved that they just are so happy to be, you know, whoever needs their help. But some of those 14, 15-year olds, and they are some of the hardest working volunteers, and
Well,
they
they're young.
yeah.
They got the motion still.
Oh, and that's it exactly. But they love it. It gives me hope. It gives me hope for future generations. It's amazing to see.
I know and I mean, I've always been a cynical person, but I just appreciate that they're less cynical than I am. It keeps me grounded a
Oh,
little. Like, and I know, like a few months back when I was at the Ontario Young Liberal annual summer fling, which will probably be the last one I go to, considering my aging out. I interviewed Aidan Lang from Kingston, so like it's important. Their perspective is important. That's why they're full members of the
exactly.
party. Like there's no
Exactly.
half membership. Like they we and it I think it's a good argument for why the voting age in Canada at multiple levels should be voted lowered to 16. Like not as
Yeah.
low as the 14 in the political parties, but clearly they are capable at an age younger than 18 of having serious political like understanding. And I would argue a lot of these teenagers have a better understanding of politics than people in their 20s.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of kids would like to have the conversations. They just don't necessarily have the people around them to have the conversation. Well, I've had lots of political conversations with multiple teenagers while we've been driving them around, my husband and I, and these kids, they have concerns.
Yeah.
They know what's going
And
on.
we're
We
not
can't.
Australia. We don't have mandatory voting. So like if
Exactly.
they don't want to vote, then they're not going to vote. But like screw it, fuck it. Like if a 16-year-old like genuinely cares about politics and is like, "Oh, I have opinions on tax rates and social program," like why wouldn't we let them vote? Like don't we want to encourage people to grow up caring about politics and the world around them?
That's what I keep writing about, what I keep talking about. Yeah, I totally agree.
No, no, yeah, and like, so moving on from your Liberal Party involvement to talk a bit about your writing, it's like you've had your Substack, the Etobicoke Voice, for a fair bit. So you live in Etobicoke. You're pretty involved in the community. What's going on in Etobicoke right now that you think is interesting?
Okay, well, I am a lifelong Etobicoke Center resident,
Woohoo!
and so yeah, and I love it, and I actually started my Substack because I felt like I had to constantly defend Etobicoke every time a city council meeting or something came up or city news came up. Um, so yeah, I started
I
in
didn't vote for
2022.
Ford. It's not my fault.
Well, I think that's one of the first tweets I started was like, "This is not Ford Nation anymore." um, and so I have been building it, and I'm trying to get out to more and more events, and I'm trying to. It is you get the opinion pieces from me for sure, but and trying to talk to people about becoming more active in the community. But I also am turning more into a bit of a news and covering things. And I can honestly say I think the biggest piece of news that I dealt with in the last few months was there's a rift going between our local MP, our Liberal MP, Van Baker, and our MPP, Kinga Surma, the Minister of Infrastructure.
Right, and for
Um,
context, Yvonne Baker is a federal MP for the Liberal Party under Mark Carney, and King Surma is a provincial MPP for the Progressive Conservatives under Doug Ford. I don't know, does she still have a cabinet role?
she does.
Yeah.
She's still Minister of Infrastructure.
Ooh, fun.
Um, yeah, and I'll tell you, we don't hear a lot locally, very often in person, and I understand that she's got lots of different things to do around the province. But there is a big issue with community safety in Etobicoke, and I know that a lot of people downtown and are like, oh, cars are being broken into. Oh, too bad. But we do need our cars to get around in Etobicoke, and some of these have become very very violent. Like
Yeah.
when you have an intruder in your home,
No,
it's
it's a
not
deep
going to be right.
violation. Like even if they're just breaking
Exactly.
in to steal something, they're not there to hurt anybody. Like it's still extremely violating.
Exactly, and it's going to create trauma, and it's going to create trauma in the neighborhoods.
No, my
So
dad
there,
actually had his car stolen, and someone asked him how, and he said someone just walked up into our driveway in the middle of the night and decided they wanted our car more.
yeah, and that's
Like
exactly it.
they just they just have the official tool to create a new key that's the exact same equipment that the dealer uses, and like bye
Exactly.
car.
And I have done so many of these conversations through the Atypical Voice, and I co-hosted a town hall in June about community safety, and we had our local 22 division officer. We had victim services come out. We had a really good, wholesome
Well,
conversation,
the next time you host a
and
town hall, make sure to invite me. I'm happy to cover these things. I live in the city.
I absolutely will because it's really hard to host and cover at the same
Yeah,
time.
it's like as much as it would be fun to write about your own event.
I'm writing to promote, but yeah, exactly. But yeah, so like it is a big concern. It is a huge concern here. And I know that, there have been things with our council, there have been things with MP Baker. So there was a lot of interest when Kinga Surma promoted that she was going to do a town hall locally, and it was actually very local to me. It's like a 10-minute walk
Hmm,
in
that's
the
good
church
for
basement.
Etobicoke.
Yeah. And so we were just like, and she's going to come in person. She's going to talk to everybody. And we're like, okay, well, I'm going to go cover this. It's a Friday evening in August. So I usually have a very cold, hard stop in the summer at noon on Fridays because my husband works half days on Fridays and I try to make it family. And even he was like, well, you have no choice. You have to go to this. I'm like, I do. And it started out, talking about theft and going to bail reform very quickly. And a lot of people were upset because they want it to work as a community. They really, really want to sit there and know how they can help, how we can bring all of our leaders together, all of our elected representatives. And unfortunately, our MPP just doubled down and said the only thing that's going to fix things right now is if you send emails or you call the MP and demand that his government brings in a set of regulations and laws that her government wants them to, and that's the only way we're going to fix things. And I'm sitting here going, okay, this this is not right, but I'm not going to speak out. I'm covering this. I'm going to listen to everybody else. And person after person was getting upset because they want our MP and our MPP and our city councilors to work together. And unfortunately, she refused. So I wrote about it. And I left it. And what is it now? October. So that was the end of August. This week, um, our MP, so Evan Baker, has actually put out on social media and put out a letter talking about what has been happening and how she's been playing this up. And unfortunately, there are issues that are obviously provincial, like room in jails, staffing our courts, things like that. So it's heating up.
Yeah.
It's made it to Twitter
So
today.
she's been blaming him publicly for a few months, saying the federal government needs to do it and the provincial government can't fix it. And I saw his social media post, and that letter this week was him responding finally after a bunch of weeks to say, actually, the provincial government needs to do a lot of things that the federal government can't do. If I may say, Jen, I've grown cynical on federalism as a model, and this is
Yeah.
why. Like the Spider-Man pointing meme just feels like the death of federalism. You have all the levels of government saying we can't do the things in our power because we rather someone else would do it. It creates multiple people, and the public never knows who's responsible because they're all pointing the finger at each other. Like, it does make me wonder, would it be better to not have a separate federal and provincial governments so we just know who to blame at all times?
Well, I feel like putting out charts that show jurisdictions. I'd like to have workshops where I talk to people about this is the jurisdiction, call this person. This is the
I'll
jurisdiction.
be honest, I don't even actually care that much about whose jurisdiction it is anymore. I just want somebody to do something. And I think that's the attitude of most voters now, too. We just
Yeah.
expect people to be adults and do stuff, and if under federalism, none of them can ever work together, then maybe it's not a workable model.
Well, and it's why I talk about getting community leaders and becoming and community leaders and using. We always hear the loud voices, right? We always hear the loud voices telling everybody what to do, what's wrong, and then making people feel like they can't express their own opinion. So I talk a lot in the Etobicoke Voice, and in locally in a lot of different groups I volunteer with is learning how to use your quiet voice, learning that it's okay to speak out, to write to your government officials. If you have an issue, write to everybody. Like just make sure that you don't feel like you're being silenced. And that's the big issue right now, in a lot of parts of Etobicoke, is that people on one side will be yelling and screaming, and people who usually just want it better for their community, want it better for families, are being pushed out. So everything that's going on, with this particular issue is really coming back to the fact that our community members are fed up. They want to see, big town halls that have an MP, an MPP, a councillor, who have police representation, have representation from, social services and, from the city, and working together. One of the biggest comments that I was so happy actually to hear at that town hall was, people asking about dealing with the root causes of crime. We know that there's such high unemployment, for young people right now. There is, the affordability for food, for housing.
I think the unemployment rate is somewhere between like 7 and 8% right now in Ontario. That's bad.
It is, and then for young people, it's so much worse.
Yeah, I'm like, no wonder people are stealing when they don't have food.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't condone it, but I can see that there's a problem that the province needs to, have some say in. And then hearing your MPP, who's yelling, well, not yelling. That's not being fair, but very sternly replying that they that she will not, she's not there to listen about the root causes. That if somebody steals a car, they should, go straight to jail for a very long time. Not looking at who it is, what it is, and I'm, this is going to sound like, oh, Jen doesn't want people to go to jail. No, if you commit a serious crime, obviously there are consequences. But maybe we should have youth programs and spend money at the provincial level on things to make it easier for families, so that these kids don't get caught up in crime.
And maybe the people we send to jail, we should put in humane conditions and actually spend money on giving them a path to not keep going back to jail once they get out. Because they will get out. Like, I'm sorry, but like for property theft, you're not going to jail for the rest of your life, because that would be absurd and inhumane.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we want to increase sentences for a crime, we can start with killing people with your car, because it seems you can murder someone with your car and be out of jail in 5 years. That's absurd. But like, I don't think we should do that and then send someone to jail for 15 years for theft. Like,
yeah, no,
other way around.
And that's why, and I'm not gonna lie, writing that article that I did was difficult, and so I decided to use the premise of, bringing in the community voices and making it a positive, which is what I try to do with the Etobicoke Voice. I'm trying to enlighten. I'm trying to bring people together, because otherwise I would have just gone off and being irate about the whole thing. I was like, that's not going to help. That's not going to help anybody. Might help me for an hour or two, but
I've noticed ever since I started writing my Substack column, I'm also I mean, I'm angry in what I write, but I'm less angry like in my normal like waking life, if you get my meaning. Like, I get it out of me. Like,
exactly. I have, that is just I have Twitter for that, and I will never call it anything other than Twitter. But that's where I get my anger.
I also am never calling it anything other than Twitter. Bring back the bird.
Exactly.
I miss when the little home icon looked like a birdhouse. I'll never forget what Elon took from us.
And the algorithms. I don't think half the people see me anymore.
Yeah. If I ever post about Israel and Palestine, my view count just tanks for like a day.
Yeah.
Well, so nevertheless, folks, don't go anywhere. We will be back soon after the break with our guest, Jennifer Alexander, the writer for the Etobicoke Voice on Substack, and the regional vice president for the Ontario Women's Liberal Commission for Etobicoke, downtown, and East York. See you in a sec. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. Folks, all of my work is available for free with no paywall at jakelandau.ca. But in order to keep writing and recording, I need money, because money is what makes this show go round. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider a paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. And please leave a 5-star rating on the show in your favorite podcast app, be it Apple, Spotify, or a secret third thing. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back from the break with our 3 headline topics of the week and our guest, Jennifer Alexander from the Etobicoke Voice and Regional Vice President for the Ontario Liberal Party. You know her. We were just talking to her a minute ago. Anyways, with our first headline topic of the day, we have good news. I know, it's a shock, folks. Something that isn't depressing and doesn't make me feel pain. Good news from the Canadian government. From CBC News in the politics section, from Peter Zimonjic, Mark Carney announces long-awaited automatic tax filing and makes school food program permanent. The Canada Strong Pass is also being extended over the holiday season and the summer of 2026. So, for some quick details, the Canadian government's going to institute an automatic tax filing system. This program will, over a period of time, it will grow to cover 5.5 million low-income Canadians and automatically file their taxes for them. These are people who work in a salaried or waged position, so they do get a T4 statement, folks, but because they don't expect to owe the government anything because of how little money they make, what happens is they don't file. But because they don't file, they don't get a lot of government benefits that are only provided to people who file their taxes. For example, the GST-HST tax credit, the Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Workers Benefit, the Disability Benefit, and the Disability Tax Credit. All of these things are pretty important. There's millions of Canadians who don't need to file their taxes, they think, because they don't owe anything. But I'm like, no, the Canadian government owes you something. So the Canadian government is going to start automatically filing for these people. But Jen, this has made some people angry. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is saying that you can't trust the government, and because they're always saying that because they're a conservative front group formerly run by Jason Kenney. But
yeah, I am very excited by this. I've done a lot of volunteering in areas where it is lower socioeconomic people who are just trying to survive, right? And they may not realize what they're missing out on. So I think this is wonderful. I really truly do, because when you're barely surviving, or you're just living on what minimum means, an HST check can be, is a huge gift, and for all the other benefits. So I was very, very excited to hear this.
I'll be upfront with people listening at home. It matters to me. I love writing. I love hosting the show. It's great work, and it makes me happy. But nonetheless, it does not pay very much. And so, like, some of these benefits are actually things I do get, and they help me a fair bit. And I like being able to eat.
Yeah. Eating is good. I remember I write a Substack as well, and it doesn't pay.
No, yeah. I'm mind you, like, for those of you at home who are paying for my Substack, I appreciate you very much, and there's more than a few of you, so I really don't take you for granted. And if you don't subscribe, it's $55 a year, $5.50 a month, and I would Really, really, really love it. But anyways, speaking of people being able to eat, another great program that the Prime Minister's office under Carney is going to be expanding is they're going to be making a permanent national school food program. And last year, they announced they would be providing $1 billion over 5 years to fund a program now to deliver meals to 400,000 additional children a year. Now they're going to expand it into a permanent program with permanent annual funding of just over $200 million a year. I think it could be bigger. I think it could do more, but I am never going to complain about giving food to children. And the one complaint people have about school food programs that I've always hated, Jen, is when they're like, well, why don't you only give it to the poor children? Why are you going to give it to the children with rich parents
Yeah.
too? And I mean, there's a very simple answer for that. A lot of children are terrible bullies. Like they harass the other children for like any minor thing that sticks out. And I've talked to a bunch of people. They remember from when they were kids, and they all know that the kids who got the free lunches from school because they were poor, the other kids made fun of them because everyone could see it was a very different. It was like you got a piece of white bread and like a single French fry. Like, and it's better now, but still, it's like when all the kids get the same school lunch, two things happen. One, the kids feel a camaraderie with each other. They know they're on the whole together. There's no room to bully on each other. But two, the parents care more because their kids are eating it too.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you know this, Jake, but I just pre-pandemic, I was a student nutrition coordinator
Hmm.
in my kids' middle school, and and then I took it. We tried to restart it, I guess, just about a year after the pandemic started. So I was, that stay-at-home mom who had basically was doing the job, basically for free.
Yeah, that should be an
Um,
actual job.
exactly. I was very lucky because when I was doing it, there was an honorarium. It
Hmm.
wasn't very big, but when you're a stay-at-home mom and you're living on one income and you have a child with, major medical needs, it definitely was helpful. But it's a full-time job. I was, trying to, I was meal planning and I was going through the shopping list and I was trying to fit this into a budget. And we had a school of almost 400 kids, and I had, it was something like barely $1 to feed each kid
Which is
for a week.
absurd. For a
It
week.
is, and you need to bring in the healthiest foods you can, because you don't know if these kids are getting fresh vegetables and fresh
Right.
fruit at home, right? And you don't know who it is, and so it's the whole the whole argument. Why are you doing this for everybody? Because you also don't know.
Right.
You have families who
They'll
are,
hide it because they're ashamed. And they shouldn't be
exactly,
ashamed. Like there's nothing morally bad about being poor. It's just a society that has failed you. Like
exactly,
you should not be ashamed for needing these programs. We should be ashamed for leaving you in that position.
100%, 100%. And one of the biggest things that stop a young person from learning is an empty stomach.
Yeah.
And to see kids who would come to me because, oh, I've forgotten my lunch. And you're like, oh, you probably haven't. But I would open those fridge doors. The principal and I would be like, do you want this? Can I give you this? Can
Yeah,
I give you that? And you're it's so rewarding. And the increase that the city of Toronto has put in the spring and I guess just before their summer stop is amazing for Toronto schools. And then with the federal government putting in the money, you know what? At least it's top of mind. And I mean, I was sitting there watching city council and I see, the councilor who represents my community, who's getting mad about it and saying that, basically this is going to teach children to live off the government. Well, no, it's not. giving kids who are at, who have a disadvantage now by having an empty stomach, having a full stomach,
It's gonna
learning.
teach kids that they should care about other people. That when there are people who need help, you should help them. How fucking horrible!
Exactly. You're giving them, basically, they're going to learn to be empathetic to others, and you're giving them a chance to really get those better grades and get the grades they want and do really well.
No, it's
So,
like you can't care about other people. That's socialism, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay, I guess I'm a
yeah.
socialist then.
If,
It's
if that's what, if that's what it means, because I care about, the community and I care about
I,
everybody's kids like my own kids, well, then so be it.
I'm willing to pay slightly higher taxes so children don't starve. Yes, if that's socialism, then good. Like whatever.
Yeah.
Like God, how are you more afraid of like being called a random label politically than you are of feeding children?
Yeah, yeah, it is mind-boggling. Like it really is. And I talked to so many people in the community, and everybody was just like, "Feeding kids, that's a good thing." Like
No,
we may not agree on everything,
no, but
but I think as a country, we're showing how
it
important it is.
reminds me in 2018 when Kathleen Wynne was on her swan song, and before Doug Ford took over government in that June's election. One of the big programs that she did in the final bit was OHIP Plus, giving every kid 25 and under in this province free medication off the formulary for what they're prescribed. And I got in a fight with people because they thought she was too left wing and that's why she lost. And I just said to them, "You think she lost because we gave sick children medicine? Like, you think that's why people voted against her in the end? Because she gave sick children free medication so they wouldn't be sick anymore? If that's true,
Yeah,
then we live in a horrible society."
yeah, yeah, exactly. And as a mother of a type 1 diabetic, and we're very blessed with good insurance, but there have been times where we've had to pay out of pocket, and we're paying, like $300-400 a month on medication that keeps your child alive. So, I think as a province, if we're going to be able to, provide that for our kids, that's a good thing. But
And speaking of diabetes medication, like I know that there are 4 provinces and territories of the 13 that the federal government has made a deal with. Ontario is not one of them. I put more blame on the Ford government for that, but
yeah,
nonetheless, it is extremely frustrating to me that we haven't yet extended free insulin to this province like we have in other provinces.
it's extremely frustrating,
Yeah.
and it's not fair. And I think that Ontarians should be up in arms about things like this.
Yeah,
We shouldn't.
yeah, and if I'm talking about federalism, then like people don't have humans aren't different humans when you go from Ontario to Manitoba. So we shouldn't have 2 different rights to life,
Exactly, 100%.
for lack of like
Like
a better way to put it. Like we both deserve a right to health care in equal measure. Like
exactly, exactly. Like, and I mean, you can compare it to the U.S. Like we're not the U.S. We should all have what they have in one province to, and everybody should be equal. We shouldn't be sitting there like, well, if you live in a red state, you get this. If you
yeah.
live in a blue state, you get this. Like that's not where we should be going. We should be trying
No.
to get away from that.
I want our country to tie itself closer together, not break further apart. But yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
hopefully things like this will help with that.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Moving on to our next topic, going from praising Mark Carney to criticizing him viciously. From Maclean's by Stephen Mayer, Mark Carney is a very demanding boss. His elbows up enthusiasm won him the election. Now he's governing like a Bay Street exec. Now, I'm not shocked that the former executive at Goldman Sachs and Brookfield is governing like a former executive at Goldman Sachs and Brookfield. But, Jen, there was a very specific part of this piece that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if you had also been thinking about it. But there was a bit here about the relationship between Karina Gould and Mark Carney during and after the leadership race this February, which determined who would be the next Prime Minister of Canada. And in this piece, and they're like, it says after he won the leadership, they got a text, him and his advisors, from Karina Gould, the 38-year-old Liberal member of Parliament from Burlington in Ontario. She'd run against him. She made a few, according to the article, here's the phrasing, she had made a few mild pokes at Carney during the debate. She took a jab at his reputation as a technocrat, and it was very, very mild, very held back. Like, it was mainly just in the debate she was saying she didn't want to abandon the left-wing policies of the party, like on climate change, on other things, very reasonable things. And Jen, I ranked her number 2 on my ballot when I was still a federal Liberal earlier this year. I put Frank Baylis number 1 just because I liked how blunt he was on saying we should recognize the state of Palestine, a position the government has now adopted. So I like the fact I say, but you get what I mean. Like, I was very amenable to her a lot. Like, she and Freeland and Baylis may not have done well on the ballot, but it's just because everyone kind of got that Carney was going to be the guy. But like, she didn't do anything wrong. She just campaigned, and she did what any candidate should do. She was assertive about what she believed in and where she thought our country should go. But apparently her needling got under Mark Carney's skin. One member of Gould's team told the writer of this piece of Maclean's that many of Carney's staff were aggressive in their vitriol towards her.
Yeah.
And when when someone from Gould's team texted to ask if she could come over and congratulate him, Carney said no, and actually said apparently he didn't ever want to see her again. Carney's staff sent her a non-committal answer, but she showed up anyway, and he apparently made it awkward for her as she was trying to congratulate him on defeating, I'm sorry, Jen, I'm going to be very blunt here. Am I wrong to think that there's an element of, sexism here?
Yeah, okay. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, because I know.
I know, we don't, no, but, exactly. I feel like if Gould was a man, and I've said this blatantly, if Gould was a man, no one would have blinked twice at this. She was just acting like what you're supposed to do, and I feel like she's just being punished for contradicting him and interfering in his coronation, I guess.
And you know what? If it was a man, he would never have texted to congratulate. He would have been off and with his own group.
Yeah.
I would have done the same thing. That's just how I am. I would have been like, let me congratulate you, things were said, but that's in the heat of a moment. That's when we're all running.
And
we're going to work together.
I ran for TDSB trustee in 2018. I didn't win, but I got 5,000 votes, which as an 18-year-old, I was pretty happy with. Yeah. And after it was done, we all congratulated each other on a way well fought, all of us candidates, and then a few of us went out for drinks. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Some races aren't like that. Between Zoran Mamdani and sex creep Andrew Cuomo, it's not like that, and it shouldn't be like that.
We're not going out for drinks.
Yeah.
No.
But in most cases, it should be like that, right?
It should, but okay, this is where I think I'm looking at this. Maybe this is an age thing. But I know that he's not coming from, a world of politics. Karina has sat in the House. She's gone through multiple elections. She has debated locally. She has debated federally, right? And I think sometimes when people come from the business world, and I have a business background, So I went to business school. I worked as a legal assistant for a number of years before I had kids. There's a lot of thin skin in business. Okay, I'm going to be very honest, and it's not that they can't do the job. It's just they don't. You don't have that question. You don't have that needling in business because you have the employees, you have the people who are running the businesses or
Yeah,
running the Bank of Canada, and so it's a different world.
you do what you're told or you don't have the job anymore. Like it's
Exactly.
private sector. It's a very different thing. And but admittedly, that's part of why I was concerned about him and why I ranked him third on my ballot. I put Freeland fourth just because of uh, some very weird stuff with how she talks about her grandfather, but that's a topic for another time. But but it's like I'm sorry, but he does need to understand politics is different. Public service is
Mhm.
different. There are people there who have a right to tell him, no, that does not work for me. You need to come up with something. And it's visible in other ways in how he conducts himself and his government. Like, look at how within like 12 hours they just tried to tell the flight attendants, no, you don't get to strike.
Yeah, and that's a learning experience for sure. And I think over time we'll see if it works or if it doesn't. But
Yeah,
it's that whole it was the situation, and it still is that situation. It's very much because of what's going on south of the border. And I think the reality is, do we have the perfect leader? Probably not. Have we ever had the perfect leader? Probably not. But do we need somebody who understands that kind of thinking right now, considering who he has to deal with? In my personal opinion, I think we do, right? So
I get it.
I would love
I get the
I'd love to
argument.
see
If he can make an
someone,
argument
yeah,
that he's competent at the job, that's one thing. But it does just really bother me that this guy, before he's even been sworn in as prime minister, when a cabinet minister is going to congratulate him, he has like no grace. He has no why is he being a bigger asshole to Karina Gould than he is to Donald Trump?
yeah. That's I mean, and that's the question. I think that's the
I get
question
why you
everybody's going
can't
to
be a
ask
blatant
themselves.
asshole to Donald Trump if we need to make negotiations with him, but you shouldn't be to core members of your caucus either. I don't
Right.
like this.
And you know what? And I'm going to bring this right back to the Women's Commission. There's a National Women's Commission as well. I'm just going to say this is why we need more women in politics.
Yeah,
We need more women to make things like thanking, somebody who you've run against normal. We need to make more of what Karina talks about when she talks about the federal child care benefits, when she talks about the needs of families. This needs to be normalized. And so, do I think it was gonna happen in this election? No. But do I think this is something that as a party and as a society we need to discuss? Absolutely. And I think we need Karina in the conversation. And I think we need more Karinas in the conversation.
yeah. It's just a worrying pattern here for me because I mean you have this with Karina, you have the flight attendant union thing, a union of largely
Yeah.
women who are doing 30 hours of unpaid work every month apparently.
Yeah,
And
it's always disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, also, it was like a week after this Karina Gould thing. He remember, like, the when he told Rosemary Barton to look inside herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
There are definite
yeah,
moments where I think I hope somebody's
yeah.
talking
I
in the
don't know if
background.
it's an intentional thing, but I do think he needs to be more mindful of how he speaks to women. Because I was raised that this is not how you speak to women in the 21st century.
And I'm glad that you say that. And my husband is very, very clear to our son, like how you work with women, like
Yeah.
how you treat them. And and I think that's becoming a lost
Well, thank you.
art.
But
I
it's
mean,
like men do need to hold other. Unfortunately, there are some assholes who just do not listen to something about bigotry or equality unless it's someone of their own group telling them to stop doing the bad thing. I don't. I hate
yeah,
that. I just listen to women when they talk to me. But if you won't listen to women and you need a man to tell it to you, stop being a misogynistic pig. And also, why are you listening to this show?
Exactly.
Like, have I not scared them away from this show at this point? Like,
no, I see it. I see it a lot,
Thank you.
and it took a long time for me to feel comfortable to speak out. Like, I used to be super, super shy, and I was like, and that's why I turned to writing. I've always been a writer and wanted to go to journalism school, but my parents were like, no, go to business school. That's where you'll get money. But it really, for a long time, I felt like I could not speak out, and it is like that for a lot of women because of the men who don't want to respect them and want to shut them out of the room. So I'm excited to see that more and more women are speaking out, and I'm excited to see more young guys like you, Jake, that are giving women the opportunity. And there's a lot of young guys that I know that are like that, and it gives me hope.
Well,
And
thank you.
Maybe I have more hope because I've seen really, really
Thank
tough
you.
times.
But admittedly, I could have more women on my show than I do. I have not been as gender balanced as I've wanted to be.
There's time.
I'm trying. I'm gonna try harder. Moving on to our third and final topic of the day, and as you folks know, we like to do a local story, and this one we're going to the far-off and mystical land of British Columbia, where in the provincial seat of power in Victoria, the Conservative Party of BC is having a real one. According to the headline here from the Vancouver Sun, written by Vaughn Palmer, cell phone searches leave John Rustad a target of jokes, mockery. Vaughn Palmer, searching cell phones, threatening reporters, goes far beyond party infighting that the public often ignores. There have been leaks in the Conservative Party caucus. There's been defections. Several MLAs, for those in Ontario unaware, in other provinces, they usually call them members of the Legislative Assembly because that, quite frankly, makes more sense. And in Ontario, we're also called the Legislative Assembly, but we call it Member of Provincial Parliament. This bugs my autistic brain, but that isn't a topic of our discussion right now, so let's move on. The MLAs in BC, he's had a few defections from the Conservative Party, from some people who are like, we don't think we can deny the residential school genocide enough, so we're going to create a new party to do that. So best of luck to Dallas Brody on being an utter piece of shit. Anyways, there have been a lot of leaks in Mr. Rustad's party. They narrowly lost the provincial election, and it seems they couldn't handle narrowly losing and just try again on the next time, so they're having a shit fit. So because of the leaks in the party, caucus whips searched all of the caucus members' phones. Like you're being investigated by the TSA at the border.
Yeah. When I heard about this, I was just like, doesn't make the Ontario provincial government look so bad right now.
Let me clarify here, Jen. When reporters asked on Thursday to Mr. Rustad, were whips searching MLA's phones to find the source of the leaks, he said, no, they're not. And then after a telling pause, said, on a regular basis. Are you fucking kidding me? The other funny thing, what?
Okay, so if you're worried about this, what are you worried about coming out? And maybe this should clue in to you that maybe what you're doing isn't the best thing.
No.
Just say.
When Wolfgang Deppner of the Canadian Press Wire Service asked Rustad if he was paranoid, Rustad tried to laugh it off with a chuckling no, but then Brad Zubik, his chief of staff, went at the reporter, and folks, this is an exact quote. That's bullshit. Shut up. You're cut off. You're not getting another question ever. You're done here. What?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I always was like, damn man, why couldn't I get a job in this line of work? How the fuck can these people get a job and I'm sitting here in my attic like recording this shit?
I ask myself this all the time.
There's no justice in this world. Jen, for our no prize question of the week for pointing out the obvious, are these people stable enough to work in government?
No.
No is the correct answer. Congrats on your winning your no prize.
I will be very happy to say that. Yeah. No, it's are we learning from the US? Like that's my only thought. Like where do you think this is okay?
Everyone is everyone in BC is thanking whatever god they believe in that these people didn't win the election.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we can laugh.
Yeah,
If it was a few seats difference, oh my gosh.
Because if they won, I don't think they would be any less crazy, but I don't think they would have been splitting apart because the lure of power would be keeping them together, as conservatives often do.
True.
And with a thin majority, it's Doug Ford, to his credit, he kicks out crazy people from his caucus on a semi-regular basis, like once a year, pretty much. Like the Roman Babbers, the Goldie Gamaris, but he can do that because of how large his majority is. He doesn't need them. If you have a thin majority, it's a very different calculus.
Yeah. Very, very true.
Yeah. And again, not to give too much credit to Doug Ford, but you know what? Credit where credit's due. I appreciate that he's not allowing people in his caucus to meet with white nationalists like Tommy Robinson. Yeah. I appreciate that the Ontario Conservatives, that they don't try and restrict abortion under OHIP. They aren't trying to hurt gay people. They're normal. They have a lot of shit I disagree with, but they're normal human beings. They're not these degenerate wackos.
There's they have things they want to do, but I'm not fearful to live in this province, so that's good.
I won't say that even though necessarily that I'm not fearful of some things. I'm fearful of another museum being destroyed. I'm fearful of a tunnel under the 401. I'm fearful the crosstown will never open.
Yeah, I'm fearful for our education system and our healthcare system.
But I'm not fearful for basic human rights.
Exactly. It could be.
Until the Americans come.
Oh, that's a nightmare for another day to worry about.
But really, I don't know if we have much to say other than to just keep laughing. So, any final thoughts about this thing in BC? Because this is absurd.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's why we really just need to, remind people why it's so important to vote. It's so important to, speak out, and it's just important to, get involved.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
You set the example, right?
Well, Jennifer, you know what I think of what you've just said? I think that you're paranoid, and that you gotta shut up, you're cut off, and you're not getting another question ever, and you're done here, because that's bullshit.
There you go. Oh, I'll just go to the next province.
Oh my God. Chief of Staff. Although, here's our final question, actually. Is that Chief of Staff better or worse than Danielle Smith's executive director, who said the other week that a kid who asked a question at a town hall he didn't like should be put over his parents' knee and spanked? Yeah, God. Something's in the water in the West, man.
Yeah. I will just stay here in Ontario and try to fix what I can, and not be totally scared about speaking out.
Oy vey, Izmir. All right. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the program. It has been an absolute pleasure. I know you said we'll talk to you next year about your progress, but hopefully we'll have you on again sooner than a year from now. We like to get people on more frequently than that.
I appreciate that, Jake, and I am more than happy to come on whenever you like. So I've had
Absolutely.
fun.
No, thank you so much. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, that's okay. Like I say, I talk and I talk and I sometimes need people to cut me off. So,
And the
but
same
thank
is
you
true
for
with
having
me, so we just keep doing that into infinity.
There you go.
Thank you so much. Jennifer Alexander, everybody, Regional Vice President for the Ontario Liberal Women's Commission for Etobicoke Downtown in East York, and the writer for the Substack, The Etobicoke Voice. And that'll do it for this week's episode, folks. Thanks once again to Jennifer Alexander for joining the program. You can read her work at the Etobicoke Voice on Substack. Next week, we will have another returning guest for you who's been in a studio episode before. No hints, but you'll enjoy them. You always enjoy them. Very great person. See you next week, folks, and I hope the Blue Jays win this game one when they started in about half an hour from the time of this taping. See you next week, and go Jays! This is the end of the show. Bye.